right, we're back again. Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition Warrior Wednesday podcast. We have a warrior with us. Amanda, say hello.
Hey there.
Pronounce your last name properly so that I don't butcher it.
Oh, it's not my fault. I married it, but it's Suffecool.
Suffecool. I'm sure that was right because I've heard this before and I've listened to some of the radio. Now, I don't know if this would be sound a little odd, but Amanda, you appear syndicated. Are you syndicated?
Yeah, I'm actually the only female Second Amendment radio host that is syndicated in the nation.
And that show is
Eye on the Target Radio.
Oh, let me bring that up on the stage here right now. There we go. Rob and Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a long and illustrious past. I want everybody to understand what Amanda Suffecool and Eye on the Target Radio are doing, and that's just a little bit of it. So go ahead.
That's just a little bit. It is. I guess everybody has a tagline of something, and mine is "and then," because it's I do this and then I do that and then I do the other. So no, I along with my brother. So on Eye on the Target Radio, it's Rob and Amanda, and it's so we're siblings. And we're one of these anomalies of siblings who really get along well. So we've just been kind of tights from the time we were young. But we're children of parents that my father was a gun collector. Our mother taught hunter safety. Our grandfather shot trap in the circuit. So some of our earlier memories, or my earlier memories, were my grandfather. Some of you may remember this. At one point in the past, shotgun shells did not have plastic wads. And when they came out with plastic wads, they only came out in commercial ammo. And you couldn't just buy wads for reloaders. So my grandfather would give us all a pillowcase and send us out to Vandalia, Ohio in the trap fields to pick up all the wads that were just randomly laying in the fields. And then we would go home and wash them in the washing machine and then sort them by size and condition on the table that was also used for Thanksgiving, right? So that was the earliest kind of shotgun memory. And once we did that and we worked, then he, as a bonus, he would allow us to run his reloading machine. And so that was like, oh, cool. This is what we get to do. So my earliest memories are firearms related. And so, I don't know what else to really say. It's just, I get involved in things because there's a need. And I mean, Eye on the Target Radio started that same way. Ohio went to pass their concealed carry, and people didn't know what the law was. It was 168 pages of legislation, and so many instructors just read the summary book instead of the real law. And so when we would do stuff or ask stuff or answer stuff, and people would say, "Where'd you get that?" And it was like, well, it's in the law, 2923.125, right? And so the radio station local to us asked us to come on and just answer people's questions. So they asked us to come on for a 20-minute interview that's lasted 3 hours. So then they invited us another month later, and it lasted 3 hours. And so it's just it just kind of started there, and it's expanded from that. And so we just do a wide variety of different conversations that involve Second Amendment because people have questions.
That's fantastic. I have some small relate with getting along with siblings. I get along with about half of mine. Actually, we're a pretty tight family, but it was kind of funny when you said that. I had a flash to like this morning when I had made a joke in our family text chat that includes my brother, sister-in-law, sister, mom, my wife, that kind of thing, about needing to buy some new shoes. And of course, there's been a lot of storms and stuff come through, and everybody was concerned about whether mom has power or not. No, she does not. We'll get that back up and running right away. And so my sister-in-law gets on there and said, 12 text notifications. I assumed there was emergency. And my sister pops in to say, yes, there was. Michael needed new shoes. So I'm like, I couldn't love you anymore right now, sissy. And of course, my brother, I'm sure he didn't respond. I'm sure he's going,
just stop. I'm at work.
I have notifications turned on my phone for what? you know. So yeah, so I understand. No, I'm glad that you could do that with your brother. So let's touch on that. How long have you guys been working in tandem, and what's going on there?
Well, so I on the Target Radio, we started in Akron, Ohio in 2010, and then we got picked up for national syndication in 2018. So we've been doing that. But before that, we owned a gun shop together. And
Ooh.
and as a spare time thing, or as a hobby for myself, I'm recently retired, quasi recently retired, and because my day job was I'm an aerospace engineer, but recently retired, and so now we rehab houses for a hobby. And so there's probably more people on social media that watch our houses because we're slightly irreverent and we name them and all of that kind of stuff. But that's what we do on also. So
I've got to tell you, that sounds like my version of Hades on Earth, refurbishing a home and doing it with a sibling.
oh
I
no,
can
I
remember.
love it. Love
Really?
it.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
glad that you can do it. I remember one time that my wife and I wanted to make a wet bar in the basement, which is little more than a handful of little uprights and some sticks holding hands and some ramming tile, right? A couple $1,000 project, probably ought to handle it in 2 hard weekends, right? Well, 77 or 8 years later, we got it finished, and our marriage did survive, but it was nip and tuck here and there. I got to tell you, it was tight. I looked at my wife a few times, and I'm like, "Did you really think it would all come to an end over a wet bar?" And she's like, "No, this isn't how I envisioned it at all." So I'm tickled that you can do it, but man alive, those projects can be daunting. And I admire people who can work well with others under those circumstances. So great.
I am made of sterner stuff. My husband and I have built 2 houses together also. So
Geez, you're raising your hand and saying, I'm willing to commit to the toughest stuff in life. Okay, maybe that says a lot about
there's
you, man.
that,
Fantastic.
right? I mean, the toughest stuff in life was my husband taught me how to ride a motorcycle. That
Okay.
was tough because, man, he's a saint. We'll just say. But yeah.
Did he choose something reasonable and easy like a little Honda Trail 70 or was it bigger?
Oh no, it was a Harley Sportster 883, and yeah, when I hit 2,500 miles, we were in Daytona Beach riding for Bike Week. So yeah.
Okay, so let's go down through what we've got so far. Syndicated host, first female in the country, works side by side with the brother, well, by the way, at the range, refurbishing houses, has built 2 houses with her husband and is still married, aerospace engineer, and what else?
Ride motorcycles on my own chainsaw. I don't know. I'm just curious, and so curiosity leads you to things. So now I retired from my day job because this is the craziest reason to retire. Really it is. And that is because I had an opportunity to go to New York to do an interview with Time Life magazine. And I was like, okay, I can't go because I was doing an aerospace audit and the FAA was there. So it was like, I can't really leave the building. Come to find out, they were on the cover of Time Life magazine. So my pesky job got in the way of something that cool. Then I got an invitation to go to Mar-a-Lago. And again, there was an audit and I could not go. And finally I went into my boss and I was like, look, this day job thing is getting in the way. And so that was really the precursor to saying, okay, I'm going to retire. And then what that did is that just gave me more time to work Second Amendment things. So I'm involved with a Girl and a Gun on their 501c3, their Legacy Foundation. I'm involved with Women for Gun Rights, which was formerly the DC Project, and women from all 50 states that go to DC, talk to their legislators. I'm on the board of directors of the NRA. So I kind of do gun things.
So what made you raise your hand to volunteer in the Second Amendment realm? I'm curious about that.
Well, it just kind of, it evolves. I guess it's it started. I was the plant manager at a window and door company, and the company imploded, and they got rid of people and did all kinds of stuff. And the day that they came to me, I'm like, okay, I'm gone. See ya. But they had cut out like 2 layers of management within the organization. So I'm sitting there and I'm just shy of 40 years old going, what am I going to do when I grow up? And my brother says, oh, if I got to do anything I wanted to do, I would own a firearms training company. And I'm like, you're insane. And he said, no, I would. And I said, there's no money in that. And he said, no, there is. So I sat down and I wrote a business plan to prove him wrong. Then we were in business. So
Right. So the gun shop was at that same time or before or after?
It was directly after that. So what happened was we started again. It was a comedy of errors, and I guess most people are accidental activists or accidental business owners or whatever, however that goes. So we were doing, so we'd put together this business model for concealed carry and did it with 2 instructors and a PowerPoint. And so we could, have all this, and you could travel and you could go teach and you could switch instructors. So if somebody couldn't come, and we hired like 8 different instructors and everybody made it work, and it was all good. Then at one of the ranges that we were teaching at, they said, hey, we've got this space over here. Would you be interested in opening a gun shop? No. So then they're like, oh, okay. So Rob and I talked about it and we said, if we use the model like they do at some of the antique stores, where there's a central desk and there's little kiosks almost that different people have their stuff in. If we did that, we could do consignment or something and work with like 4 different groups of people and have a gun shop. So we started asking people, and we got 4 different groups of people who said, yes, they'd like to do that. Okay, we put it together, signed for the FFL, signed the lease, did all that stuff. And then one by one, they all backed out. So now we're sitting here going, okay, we don't have any money, or not a lot of money, not the amount of money that you need to own a gun shop, right? And so we took $3,000, went to Midway USA and bought the beginning supplies for whatever's going inside the gun shop. Because, oh, by the way, you cannot just go to a distribution house without having any kind of background or history, right? They don't talk to you. They're not selling to you. So we did that. And then we're like, well, we're a gun shop. We have to have guns. So we went through our own personal closets and said, well, I could live without this. I could live without that. And so we stocked the gun shop to begin with the extra stuff we had from home. And then we ended up with the gun. So we were doing the firearms training. Then we had the gun shop. We were located at our local range. It was all good. So.
Did you enjoy doing that? Or maybe I should ask it like this. Of the touches that you've had in the Second Amendment realm, which has been your favorite so far?
My favorite stuff is I'm a problem solver. That's kind of the thing that kind of clicks me. My brother is really, really the gun guy, the gun historian, the gun knowledgeable guy. Marksman, gunsmith, that kind of thing. And for me, it's the problem solving things. It's the management stuff. It's that. And so my favorite things is I really am enjoying being on the board of directors of the NRA, because it existed for 154 years before us. It's been in some distress. It needs some love and attention. And so my skill sets absolutely fit right into it. The other thing is that we started to, when people ask me how I carried, I was like, well, I can tell you how I carry my gun, but I'm going to tell you that, we're all different. And some people are shorter or taller or busty or, all of those kinds of different shapes. So the way I carry is not necessarily the way that you carry. So we started to do concealed carry fashion shows. And we did the first concealed carry fashion show, and it was a hit. And then the guys, we did for all women. And the guys were like, hey, what about us? So then we started to do a unisex one. HBO did a documentary on us. Vice did a documentary on us. And then all of a sudden the NRA, this is kind of before I started to do anything with the board, NRA called me and said, we saw your Vice documentary and we would like you to teach us how. So I trained the NRA how to hold concealed carry fashion shows.
That is, I can't tell you how cool that is. That's fantastic. That's it. That's fantastic. I should stop right there. I love that. So that has grown on a life of its own, or are you?
I'm kind of slowed down on doing it now, but I was doing it because once I ran for the board of directors of the NRA, I can no longer do that in conjunction with the NRA because there's a series of conflicts that shouldn't be conflicts, but because of history and different people, there's a really hard line of what you can and cannot do if you're on the board working with the NRA. So it's like, okay, I get it. Here's the rules, and we'll just pause on that and move on to something else.
Well, there are separations that are necessary. For example, I'm putting up on the screen right now a separate item because I want people to know about IFC's raffle. It's a primary method of our funding. And oh, by the way, you've got a chance to own something very cool. So check that out. Go to iofc.org and hit the raffle and buy a ticket or several tickets. You're welcome to do that. Also, our trusted partners are people who have donated to the organization. They offer program codes and tangible goods, services, discounts. All those kinds of things can be found at iofc.org. When you're a member, the discounts deepen and the whole 9 yards. So we want you to be sure to do that. And when we talk about these separations, it's important that we get that stuff right. So I would like to delve now into, you spoke earlier about NRA service in terms of the board, so to speak. I'd like to have your impression of, let's back up. I'd like to understand your perception of the board, Amanda, before going there. You know, you run and you get elected by the members. Now you're there. Is your perception different? And if so, how? I'd like to know a little bit about that.
You know, I've been an NRA member. I'm trying to think of how long. I mean, let me even go back further. Before I was an NRA member, I was part of an NRA family. So in a lot of cases, and a lot of people, you are NRA because someone in your family belongs. So there's the official and the unofficial. So for years, I was an unofficial member of the NRA, where my brother was a life member, my dad was a life member, my mom, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I would pay my $35 and then I'd wait a little while and then I'd be like, I think I missed it. And then I'd pay it again. And then, so finally I joined and just went for life membership because my memory is not, or my attention span or squirrel, whatever it is, it would be like, darn it, I think I'm not getting my magazine again. Here we go. So that was the first part. Then the next part is that when you run into somebody who was on the NRA board, I was like, they were like, I mean, it was a big deal. You know, how many people really know somebody from the NRA board? And it's like, what did you do? And what was your life's journey? And how did you get there? And thank you for doing it. And whatever that was. And so it was from my childhood on up. It was a big deal. I mean, Ted Nugent and Arlie Ermey, and you started to look at who all had been on the board. And it was like, this is pretty cool stuff.
Oh yeah. Then, you'll walk through and you'll see like, who's that? That's Quigley. That's Tom Selleck, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I got on the board and Superman was on the board, right? I mean, I was like, wait, this is pretty cool. I've made friends and I've made acquaintances on it since then. But one of the things that I realized was that there's like two levels of people that are on the board. And there are people who are they're all on the board because they believe in the Second Amendment. And even if I don't agree with them fundamentally on something, I have to keep my head around the fact that, look, they're on here for the same reason that I'm on here. We may disagree on something, but they joined the NRA because they're fighting for the Second Amendment in the ways that they think that it is right. Mm-hmm. So there's that. I want members to realize, though, that when you vote for the members and you vote for people because you know their name, because they're famous, those aren't the people in the trenches who are actually doing the work. And so you want to make sure that you spend the time and read the bios and look at people who have the skill sets to take the organization in a direction that you want it taken based on the things that you think are broken. So, so you don't elect, and he's not on the ballot. So you don't elect Ted Nugent to say, okay, we've got a financial problem, right? Because Ted Nugent he can play music and he's got people, but he's not that. So you're looking for lawyers, you're looking for accountants, you're looking for people who have that experience kind of thing. And so that's the biggest thing I think on the inside for me, was the fact that there are this many board members that are picked based on popularity. And then once they get in, then you have to sit and look at them and go, okay, based on this, who do we have that has a skill set to solve this problem or work on that problem or do this? And so that's the second level of it.
Well, I think that you're illuminating something that most people may not have brought to bear, and I'm really, really tickled that you are. Another aspect of this is the committee work. I'm not a board director, but I've been on the clubs and association committees for a number of years now, 7 or maybe 8 years, and I was placed with an additional committee for grassroots this year, and I'm pleased and honored to be able to participate. But I see now that I've done a lot of committee work and participated a lot, how hard some of the staff works and how hard some of these committee members work, whether they're board members or not. And I know that there's a bunch, not all, but there's a bunch, that absolutely dedicate a lot of their waking hours to making sure that things are done and done well. And so I understand completely why there are assertions about NRA that are negative, because the fact of the matter is, we're sinners, we're flawed, we're error-prone people. We're going to make mistakes. Everybody, board members, people who are employed as staff, committee members, all points in between. And frankly, we're going to make more mistakes. But I think probably for me, it's not about the mistakes that have been made that get me wrapped around the axle. It's about how we're going to handle them when they are made. And so I think that I'm very pleased. I shouldn't say I think, I know. I'm very pleased with people like Doug Hamlin and the board directors who are moving that way. I see some things that I'm really, really happy with. Nothing is perfect. But I see a trend in the right direction, and that's what I hope to see. And so I'm glad about that. So you came, you ran for board of directors. What was there any of this? I'm going to clean up this one horse town, or what were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking that the NRA was in distress, right? And so it was like, well, if I've got any skills and abilities to help it not be in distress, then this is the time. People are like, well, why are you doing it now? The NRA is in trouble. Why are you doing it now? Everybody's poking at the NRA. And I was like, well, that would be the perfect time, because when it hits bottom, there's got to be somebody that's there to catch it and to give it a boost to head north. And so that's kind of where that is. And, sometimes you look at it and say, there are times and there are places where all of a sudden you look and say, a lot of my skill sets all come together for a moment in time, for an ability, for a thing. And I believe that I've got a lot of the skills that it takes to help the NRA find its footing again. And so that's really it. And I'm not by any means going, I'm special or I'm smarter or whatever, but I've spent years talking to engineers, working with engineers, talking to accountants, working with people and teams and that. So coalition building and team building and problem solving and brainstorming and trying to get the ideas from different people, because there's so many good ideas, yet they don't know who to talk to or where to put them or how to get them out. And so that's where I believe that there's a skill that I bring. And when I went to engineering school, there were 4 women in the entire engineering school. So I'm not easily intimidated. I'm not easily pushed around. I'm persuadable, but it's got to be some kind of logic, not just because I said so. Well, okay, sorry, not impressed, right? Move on, whatever that is. But so that's kind of a piece of where we are right now. And so I'm really happy with my committee assignments, where I'm at, what I'm working on. One of the things that we're going to be voting on in the September board meeting is consolidating public relations and publications and creating an organization called NRA Media, which then starts to look at potentially radio, podcasting, TV, the publications, social media, all of that. So the forward-facing messaging portion of the NRA. Because if you look at the historical references to it, a lot of people, right now, there's a lot of people who are talking trash about the NRA. And one of the reasons they're talking trash is because the NRA hasn't talked about themselves. Yeah. And so when Letitia James came after the NRA in 2017, 2018, right in there, when she came in after them, they, in effect, got a divorce from Ackerman McQueen. They got a divorce from their marketing firm, from their PR and forward-facing group. And so they stopped talking about what the NRA does. And so we stopped talking, just point blank, stop talking. And then what happens is other organizations get a foothold, or they talk, and some of them talk trash and some of them don't. But okay, there's that. But the funny part is we didn't stop working. So when I found out that the entire Bruin decision, history, text, and tradition in 1781. Yep. So the entire Bruin decision was funded by the NRA. So the next largest Second Amendment case after Heller was funded by the NRA, and no one had talked about it. The NRA didn't talk about it. When you start talking to Second Amendment people inside the circle, inside the guys who talk and write and blog and all of that, they're like, well, we didn't know that. So shame on NRA because of that. Shame on them. And that's the piece of what we're going to start to look at. So we're going to work on messaging to our folks inside, and our folks who are the unofficial members, and our folks who are the maybe want to join members, to say, these are the things that we're doing. These are the things that we did. And here's how it impacts you. And draw the correlations and draw the connections and give the information, because we just haven't done it. And then what happens is you start to talk to people inside the circle. How many podcasts have you listened to where when they talk to one another, they almost talk in code? You got, well, let's put it this way. I've been in the gun world for a long time. I'm not an AR gal. I've taken a class on ARs. I own an AR. I shoot an AR a little bit, but I don't know anything about it. I really don't know it like I know my pistols. I don't at all. And somebody one day did something about a BCG. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Yeah. So Chris Serino sends me a message, and he's like, you have got to be kidding me. Nope, I am not. Right. And so he's like, well, you need to come see me because we're going to fix this. Okay. And I'm open to education, and I'm open to training, and I'm open to all of that kind of stuff, but I don't know. So if I don't know, I try to keep in mind, if I don't know, then how many other people who are listening don't know? So Agreed. When you say BCG, let's talk about it as BCG. Oh, Bolt Carrier Group, right? Let's talk about what it really is, so that people know, and not just a secret little code for something. And so I was one day listening to somebody else's podcast, and they had tossed out so many different things that I'm like, I felt like I was completely left out of an old boys club that was taking place on my radio in my car, that it was like, we know secrets that you don't know. Yeah. And that's really probably my biggest mission, is to make it so that come along with me on the journey, not I'm special, I know, and you don't know.
I think that that's not my chief complaint of the Second Amendment community, but it's up there at the top because I'll give you a perfect example. On the Iowa Firearms Coalition board, I don't know how many of them. It's a small board. I think there's like 8 of us, but I don't know how many of them are pilots. And most of them have been corporate pilots. All right. I mean, flying lots of passengers, lots of places over a great period of time. I wouldn't know how many miles, right? Well, these guys drop acronyms all the time. And I'm like, okay, and our good friend Billy, there's a president, was looking at me. He's like, what are you doing? Because I kind of sat back there like this. I didn't actually close my eyes, but it was close. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, when they start talking like this, I said, I zone out. And he left. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what TCAS means. I don't know any of this stuff. And I said, and so I just laugh and we had a giggle about it. And I tell those guys, hey, it's like you guys are speaking in English. It's like you're actually speaking English. But since you're not, and I don't know what you're saying, you let me know when we want to get back to the subject at hand. They all laugh and we go about our business. I'm much better with it now. But when I would have some hardcore military door kickers come in here, they would drop so many acronyms I couldn't keep up. So, and so I'm like, okay, when you guys are ready, I'll rejoin the conversation. The Second Amendment crowd does that. We often know our business, we know our realm, and we don't speak about it in ways that are, I don't know if this is the right word or not, but inclusive or draw people in. We tend to zip down through things so quickly because you know what I'm talking about, and I know what you're talking about, Amanda, that we don't need to expand on it. I think that that's a fundamental mistake. If you're going to appeal to people, then they need to have an understanding of what's going on or have some easy buy-in. Don't make it hard. And we do that a lot. It's right down fundamentally to some of the ideas that we share. We have gotten so insulated in what we know and believe, which aren't bad things. We're not able to share them effectively with people that don't understand it, oppose it, or are on the fence. I don't think that we do that well.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But I think that one of the things that I think that we should be doing and be cognizant of is I personally don't believe that there's any value in finding somebody who fundamentally disagrees with everything that I stand for and then having a conversation with them, because you're not winning, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your breath, you're wasting brain cells, right? I think that if they are standing back to back with me and looking completely the opposite direction, I'm not going to turn them around. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who are facing to the right and facing to the left that I can cause to shift forward just a little bit. And all of a sudden they see sort of the way I see, or they will come this way. And I think that for me is a much better use of my time and my energy than it is. I don't want to just talk to exactly people who agree with me, but I don't want to talk to exactly people who completely disagree with me. I watch people on social media get into wars and fights and stuff, and they're like, see, I told them. And it was like, yeah, and blockety block, and you're done. And that didn't gain anything. Right. Now, but on the other hand, that behavior, how many people that were kind of sideways one way or another, did you turn their direction because of your behavior?
Right.
So.
Yep. We talk about, destination excellence. Well, that may or may not be achievable, but I would say that your pathway there matters supremely. It very much does. And, from in the perspective of biblical literacy, we're called to be salt and light. Well, what's that, Michael? Well, that's being preserved and be preservative for others. We're light where we're easily recognizable. Well, are you going to carry yourself that way all the time or not? And it's exceedingly hard, but yeah, we're supposed to do that. So, I mean, you're right. Don't have bad behavior and don't make it routine. And I think that things arguably could work out much better. So I admire that. It's back to the NRA board work. I think that there are a number of people who might be listening to this to say, well, I'm great. Or that's great, Amanda. I'm glad that you're willing to do that. You obviously have the skills, the gumption, the talents in order to do that and do that well. I I might be able to help, but I don't think I can make a successful run for board of directors, or maybe that isn't for me. The interesting thing about the Second Amendment community, specifically NRA, is they have all these places that you can plug in.
Mhm.
So if you want to be, I mean, here's the other thing. It's interesting. My daughter just turned 16, and she petitioned and asked for and applied for the NRA Yes program, the Youth Education Summit. That's the
Mhm.
YES acronym. Okay, for those out there that
Mhm.
don't know that, I didn't know it either. Youth Education Summit. She was accepted. She just got back and she spent a week in DC, and NRA walked her through the paces, and they had a phenomenal time. She had nothing but glowing things to say, and she enjoyed all of it. Made some new friends, got a lot of help from NRA staff and directors, and Doug Hamlin, Mark Vaughn, the group, all that kind of thing. So anyway, she was talking about all the things that she learned. And I said, you didn't have any idea that NRA had that many programs, did you? You didn't have any idea that they trained that many people, 1 million people a year for free. You didn't know that, did you? She's like, no. I said, you didn't know that they did this, and that, whatever. She said, I had no idea, Dad. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I know, because I sent you to their site and I told you to pore over it for weeks. And I said, and you still didn't soak it all up. I said, there's so much going on. And so now the question before her is, how may I plug in? What do I think that my future looks like? Am I going to be a Second Amendment advocate, or how can I do that? And what choices are before me? Well, there's a ton. And
Mhm.
that's just for a kid who was given a deep dive into all these things. Well, it doesn't take much to go on their website and figure out where you can plug into. You want to be part of why heck, the youth education or hunter education group, or maybe you want to raise your hand and say, my range or my women's group or whatever else could use an NRA day. That's easy. That kind of stuff. And then right down to grassroots activism. Well, yeah, maybe board of directors isn't for me, or maybe I don't have the desire to do that, but how can I plug in locally? There are ways for you to do that when it comes to electioneering, helping, whatever else. It truly allows people to integrate on any level that they
Mhm.
wish. And I wish that more people knew and understood that, because there, as you said, or as I'm outlining about the things that you're sharing with us, we all have these fundamental talents that are in us. Some are here, some are there, whatever else. But there are ways that everybody can participate. I just wish that they raise their hand to do it. And I'd like to encourage them to do it because I really think most of the time, NRA has made that participation very easy. Some organizations and some movements haven't. I think that overall they do a pretty darn good job of that. And they are refining some of those processes further. I mean, as culture changes, as time goes on, the way that we do some of these things now isn't what we did 20 years ago or 50 or 80 or
Mhm.
whatever else. So I'm glad to see them change with the times. And I think that that's very, very important.
I agree with you, absolutely. So one of the things is look at your local gun shop and see what they are doing, and if they've got any kind of NRA programs. The Friends of NRA is always looking for, there's banquets somewhere in your state that you can go to. Start there, right? How can you do it? I can support, but I'll go there. I'll take friends. The second thing is I can get involved with one of these committees or one of these groups. I can RSO when they're doing a shoot. I can host a Women on Target or any of those kinds of things. I can take my NRA magazine and I can talk to my neighbor about it, right? All of those things are a good start. But I'll tell you, when you want to join the board, and we need new blood. I mean, the courts have made it easier to get involved. That is one of the things that when New York sued the NRA, they had said that there was some old boys kind of trying to keep people out, so they made it harder to get on the board. All that's shifted, all that's changed. You can run by petition right now. You just need 400 signatures, and then you can be on the ballot for the board. There's some deadlines, there's some stuff, but you can do it. And frankly, if you've got a skill set in one of the areas that the NRA is looking for, one of the committees, let's say finance, let's say they have an audit committee and an ethics committee. So if you are somebody who is really good at the fine print and looking over and reading and rule following and that kind of, social policing, there's the bylaws committee looking at and reading the bylaws and saying, were they written 100 years ago? Have they been updated? Do they make sense? There's room for a variety of people. And that's one of the reasons why the board is as large as it is, because there is actually 140 different directions that the NRA goes, 140. And so looking for somebody who's got, I do not have any skills in competition, right? I absolutely do not. So when you start to look at where is competition and where do we need, if you have played or participated in competition and then found that they're not coming to your community, your neighborhood, your whatever, and you don't like it, get involved. It really is. You are the change you want to see. This is your organization.
I like that. Say that again.
You are the change that you want to see. That really is it. If you stand back and you say somebody ought to, guess what? You are somebody.
Yeah. You just, when you say somebody ought to, what you just said is I know that I should do it and I'm not. Right. I offer. Okay, so probably 8 times a day, I have to set my son down and go through Cain and Abel. So, okay, son, that didn't go well. Do we know why? Yes. I'm like, okay, explain it to me. I don't know. That's a standard response for an 11-year-old boy. So I'm like, okay. God rolls up and says, "You two boys, Cain and Abel, bring me your best." And what happens? Abel brings him his best. Cain doesn't. And so Cain's walking around with a sourpuss, and what happens? God says, "What's with the sourpuss?" And before he can blurt out anything, he says, "Wait a minute. You know what you should be doing, and you're not, but you can." Mm-hmm. And I think that's a tremendous lesson for everybody, 24/7, everywhere. You know what you need to do, and you know how you need to do it, and you aren't. So make mm-hmm. that change. And so when you said that, I was like, bing. I really like that because people need to know and understand it, and there's no shortage of ways to plug in and make your touch. So when I visit with my friends, they're like, "Why are you such an NRA lover?" I'm like, "Now hold on a minute. I'm unhappy with some of the things that have happened. I'm not saying that I am. I'm not condoning bad behavior in any way. I'm saying let's take this in context. Were mistakes made? Yes. Were mistakes corrected? Yes. Do we know that? Well, it certainly appears so. And let's be watchful and move forward. And oh, by the way, I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because when I look around at some of these other groups and say, okay, I like what they're doing, I like what these guys are doing, whatever else, I say, I'm not going to shortchange him. I like some of these things. I do. Some of the things I don't. But I'm honest about the idea. When was the last time I saw one of these other groups show up and train anybody? Never. When was the last time I saw one of these groups at the State House? Never. When was the last time I got one of these people on the phone to help me craft a piece of legislation or look down through for some sort of language that will end up hurting us long term, so that we can avoid some of that calamity? Never. And oh, by the way, what track record do they have for doing these things long term? And you go down through it over and over, and I'm like, okay, some of these groups that I see are good. Mm-hmm. They are. Mm-hmm. But oh, by the way, I'm not going to deny this history that's inherently better than it is worse. So come on, guys, let's be honest here. You gotta seek the context and then be honest about it. So now that you petitioned, did you petition or were you nominated?
So I applied to the nominating committee, and I started applying. I think I applied for 4 years before the nominating committee picked me. And so one of the things that I had found was that I was elected in the year 2023. So I retired in April of 2022 and then was nominated directly thereafter. But had I not, then I would have run by petition. And because a pesky day job gets in your way of trying to go places and places and places to get all the signatures you need to get. Right. It has since gotten easier. I am actually up for re-election in the 2026 election cycle. So I will be back on the ballot in January. And so as we were going through the courts, with New York, one of the things that the judge has said was, you've made this so hard for people to get on the ballot. And, and I'm of like two minds. I don't want it to be hard for them to get on the ballot, but I want them to have to show that they've made an effort. And I don't want Bloomberg or the demanding mommies or one of those to truly infiltrate and get on our board, because there's no place or no way to get them off, right? They're elected, they're duly elected, they're on the board. So I think that there has to be a couple hurdles to be able to do that. So the judge said, we're in the 21st century now. So how about we do this electronically? So they debugged, and we did an electronic petition because there's two ways to run. Either by nomination, the committee looks at you, looks at your skill sets, and says, yes, the board has a need for that, we'll put you on the ballot. Or you can run by petition, and that circumvents all of that stuff and says, well, 400 of your peers who are life members or voting members say that you should be on the ballot. So I went to the secretary's office and said, I know we're going to do this new program, and I know it's going to need debugged, and I know somebody's going to need to look at it. I will volunteer to be that guinea pig so that you get feedback without anybody having a bad experience. I understand those kind of processes and debugging and looking at it. And so I had people sign up, and then we had problems. And so we'd feedback with the IT group, we'd feedback to the secretary's office. So I kind of started that process by petition a couple of weeks before anybody else had gotten their petition language, petition links. And so we debugged it. And so I have just completed the last of the signatures needed for me to meet the minimum criteria. Now, the secondary part of that is that only by the bylaws, they want to keep it from one state overwhelming the entire board. So by the bylaws, by petition, only 2 petition members can run for the board at any 1 year from the same state. So now I need additional signatures just to make sure that I stay as one of the top 2, because I don't know who else is running. But I've met the minimum threshold to be on should no one else from the state run. But I've heard there's 3 or 4 that are. So it's a little bit of both going on there.
You wouldn't think that there'd be so much competition, but I guess that I'm glad there is on one level. Mm-hmm. And I hope that these people are running for all the right reasons, because
correct.
I don't know a better way to do it, but there seems to be, in the back of my mind, there's an itch. Should we be doing this by, essentially a popularity contest? Because that's kind of what it is if you think about it like that.
Oh, that's bigger than kind of. It is what it is, yes.
Yeah, and that's hard to embrace, because if we're commanded to be humble. Well, how do you be humble and then go out and try to win a popularity contest? Those things are mutually exclusive. So it's a little hard to wrap your mind around that and make it work. But you tell yourself, okay, it's not about a popularity contest for me. It may be for others. I have skills that I want to share. I'm passionate about this, and I believe that I can help. And so if you'll let me, I'll go help. And I think that's probably the healthiest way to look at it. I'm sure you had those thoughts. You've told us in this conversation you had those thoughts.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I have the personality of an engineer. I want to tear it apart. I want to put it together. I want to fix it. I want to do all that stuff. I don't, if I have a choice between a book and a corner and a crowd of people, I'm taking the book. Right? I'm going that direction. So it's sometimes it's way too people-y out there in the world for me. But it's sort of a piece of what comes with it. But I welcome people that want to join, and I say to people, when you are voting, make sure that you either know these people or that you read their bios and you pick the skill sets that you think we need, highlight those, and then narrow it down to there.
All right. I sometimes am hiccuping in this conversation over the engineering part of your background. From being a former engine guy, German engine guy, and now being a gun plumber for a living, and being in the depths of HK routinely, I think,
what were they thinking?
If I could get a hold of that German engineer and shake him, I
Oh,
would.
my father is a tool and die maker. My husband is a mechanic, right? So in some cases, I was my career choice was the Antichrist to both of them, right?
Oh, I'm
I mean,
sure.
they're
I'm
like,
sure. That wild Christmas dinners with turkey legs being thrown at one
right,
another.
what are you thinking? What were you doing? Right, all of that. Um, my dad, when I said that I wanted to go into engineering, my dad was like, "Well, you need to learn how to be a machinist first." And so I went to metal machining school. And then for 2 years, he kept saying, "Do you want it to print or do you want it to work?" I'm like, "Give me that back," right? What's wrong with it, right?
Yeah.
So I have to say that I was blessed to have some tough love in not just being, oh, look at my little honey is going to be an engineer, but he was like, if you're going to be an engineer, if you're going to be a manager, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be a good one, right? And so that was part of my upbringing, we'll say.
Well, it's important to bring, if you can have it, or if you have it, or if you can conjure it, I would say true mechanical aptitude preceding any kind of engineering or architecture or anything like that. Because as you well know, it is not actually that hard when you're researched and thorough to come up with a fantastic mousetrap. Now, don't encase the mousetrap in 6 inches of concrete in a little box that creates all this extra work
Right.
to bait the mousetrap, and that's what every now and then I'll see some feat of
Right.
engineering. I'm like, this is absolutely fantastic. And then I'm like, just think how great it'd be if we could actually use it,
If we could get to it, if we could do, no, I am. Yeah, I was very, very lucky that I spent very early in my career working for kind of a think tank, an experimental company that was doing catalytic converters for metal monolith catalytic converters for automobiles, for cogeneration power plants, for all of that kind of stuff. So we were developing stuff that, in effect, think of it, it's very thin metal that's formed in a shape that then has a ceramic coating that then you have to be able to flex without the ceramic coating breaking off. So that was my early challenges. And by the time we got done, we were extremely successful, sold the company a couple times. But the president of the company had a theory that said that you could spend 10% of your time working on a project that only you believe in. And so that you can debug it, you can work on it, you can do whatever. And then at some point, come bring it to us and tell us and show us. And that company developed more things and had more ideas and more patents and more just absolutely development that came out of it than any company I've ever worked for since. It was brilliant because of that freedom. And so it really causes you to stop and think, because you've got to then be persuasive afterwards.
Yeah, I remember, it's been a number of years ago now. My wife and I were shopping for a new car. My wife likes to drive things that are sporty. I knew this was going to be a problem when I hopped in the vehicle to drive into the city and start looking around. I knew that. But you love your spouse, and so you do what you do. So we get in there, and she finally finds a 4-door sedan that's zippy, and she's takes it on a test drive. And we did this throughout a series of weekends, right? And she's like, "Oh, I love this one." I'm like, "I'm sure you do. This speedometer goes to 140. I'm sure you probably like this." So anyway, we get back, and we're with rookie salesman, right? And so I'm like, "Hey, let's pop the hood." And he's like, "What?" And I said, I want to look under the hood. And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And so he had a little trouble finding where the hood release was, and I get it open. Okay. Now, serious, this actually happened. I'm standing there, my wife, I'm doing the guy thing while my arms are crossed and I'm looking at the hood. I'm not real sure what I'm looking at definitively, but from being an engine tech, I had a pretty good idea, right? And I'm like, "Where's the oil go?" He's like, "What?" And I said, "Where's the oil go?" He's like, this engine has oil. I said, "I'm sure it does, but I'd like to know where it goes in." And he's like, "Well, hold on a second." And he looks, and then he gets real nervous and ends up motioning the guy over. So then veteran sales guy comes up And he's like, and they're talking. And the next thing you know, the veteran sales guy walks over to me. He's like, your question was, where does the oil go, huh? And I'm like, yeah. He says, well, that's a problem. And he said, apparently on this engine, you're going to have to remove some things. I said, what do you got to remove? He says, well, this air intake plenum needs to go, blah, 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 blah. And then this comes off. And he's like, and then back over here is a twist cap. And he said, most people use some sort of elongated funnel. And I'm like, so it's going to take me 25 minutes to add oil to this engine when I change oil. And he's like, well, he's like, depending on your skill level, maybe. And I said, I looked at my wife and I said, nope. And so that was it. So, I mean, I don't mean to beat the engineer thing to death, but we need to be thinking about these things. And I think it's a lesson for NRA. It's a lesson for the Iowa Firearms Coalition. It's a lesson for all of us. Sometimes, what is that crappy line in the Jurassic Park movie? We were so busy thinking about whether we could do something. We never asked if we should.
Well, I think there is that. And it's look at the end user. What does the end user really want? Not what the guy in the know on the inside thinks, but step back and look at what the end user expects, what they want, what they need. And then that's what you need to provide. Yeah. You know, and that's a problem with a lot of companies. A lot is that they provide what they are going to tell you need, not what you're going to tell them you need.
Yeah. That's a German thing. Big time. I can remember arguing with those people all the time, and they'd be like, you don't understand. I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand the North American market. They don't want anything to do with this. Will you please give them what they want? And like, no, ours is better. I'm like, long term, I'm sure that you're probably right, but that's not what these consumers want. And oh, by the way, that is not what you're competing with. So we're going to need some concessions here. And they're like, V will make no concessions. And I'm like, okay, fine. Don't sell anything.
Yeah, so, V will not be in business.
Yes, that's right. So, but it's a good lesson for NRA, because you need to listen to the members, or you also need to listen to the to-be members to figure out where your members are going to come from. Will they be in the same places and same ways that they were before? Maybe not. I mean, I'm kind of the epitome now. I mean, you didn't bargain on visiting with Santa Claus when you got on those broadcasts, but here you are. Okay. So I am the epitome of what people see or have seen the Second Amendment as, were these, 50 something white guys. Well, that's not what's happening.
You're not wearing a plaid shirt. You need to be a bearded dude in a plaid shirt.
I took my plaid shirt off to change into this polo before this. So, yes, in fact, I probably have a plaid shirt on under this, but yes, I know what you're saying, but that's not who the community is anymore. And I'm not sure it ever was solely that. I don't think that that's true either, but it has certainly moved away from that. I'm seeing all kinds of people of different color, size, shape, gender, all these different things that are really enthusiastic about the Second Amendment. And now that places a special responsibility on us. And the accountability associated with saying, how can I welcome you to the group? What questions do you have? And is there a way that I can be of service? And, oh, by the way, thank you. Thank you for opting into something that I see as automatic. And now you may share that with me, because the First Amendment, Second Amendment, these things apply universally, and they should be very, very simple concepts, but we make them complex, and we shouldn't do that.
Exactly. No, we do. And so that is, it shouldn't be harder than it is. And, Rob and I were talking on our show, I think Sunday, about the fact that there are some communities where Americans believe that they don't have the right to own a gun. And it's not because it's true. It's because it's been handed down from generation to generation. I mean, some of us know that, some of us have been handed down that when you shoot your gun, you have to clean it immediately. Well, we all know that came from corrosive ammo. Yeah. There are some folks in some communities that Uncle Earl could not own a gun. And so then they just kind of by default believe that everybody in their community or their color or their whatever, their last name or whatever, can't own a gun. And so part of our job is to disabuse them of that notion. It used to be in the 70s and 80s that if someone had a felony in your household, that no one in the household could own a gun, until someone challenged that and said, wait, because my husband can't own a gun does not mean that I should not be able to protect myself. and the courts agreed. But we've done a really bad job of sharing that information. Those are the kinds of challenges of meeting them where they're at.
Oh, without a doubt. Some of these are culturals, like you say. I mean, we had Reverend Ken Blanchard. Do you know him by chance?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, we had him on the program, and we had a great discussion. And if I remember, I'm paraphrasing, mind you, he basically said, I can remember as a pup out in the country with my grandfolks and whatever else, and firearm ownership was the way it was. And then when we went to the city and visit our relatives, they basically said, well, that's fine for you there, but you leave that stuff in the country. We don't do that here, and that's not what we're going to do. And it had nothing to do, from what I could tell, to do with color or gender or anything like that. It was a cultural phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Firearm ownership is okay out in the sticks. Don't you bring that stuff in town. And
right.
And there are a lot of people who may still be thinking that way. I hope not, but I'd like to break some of those barriers down without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
have you heard of Rick Ector and the program that he just did in Detroit? Rick is.
I don't know that name.
Okay, Rick is legally armed in Detroit, and he was a firearms instructor. He's a NRA instructor, TC. But there was a gal in his community that was killed and left on the road, and he was like, "That's crazy, and it's not happening in my community." So he started to do this women's shooting event where he introduced people to welcome them to the gun shop, introduce them to firearms safety, introduce them to firearms training. And then he started calling his friends. And so he's on the 10th year of doing this, 10th or 11th year. And over the course of one weekend with volunteer instructors, they have a safety talk, and then they go with one-on-one with an instructor and shoot in a bay of an indoor range. And they had, this past Saturday, Saturday's numbers I saw, I didn't see Sundays. Saturday's numbers were 1,109 women were taught gun safety and gun handling and shot targets. And then, so they were welcomed in and walked into a gun shop. So first thing is you don't go someplace you've never been before. So now they've been in a gun shop, right? Then they got a safety talk. So now they have a safety talk. So they understand don't point your gun and how you load it and all of these kinds of things. So if they come in upon a gun in the wild, they've got an idea of how it works and what happens. Then they go and they actually specifically handle it and shoot it and work with an instructor. And it is such a powerful program that I know that one year I was there. This year I didn't make it, but one year I was there, and there was 1,938 women that came through the program over the course of a weekend. He had instructors that came from Florida, from California, from Texas, from Ohio, from all over that said, Rick, you're doing this, we'll come and help you. That's the kind of thing that we need in all of the major cities, where somebody is willing to spend the day, spend the time, and say, look, we'll introduce you, we'll start you, we'll get that. Because nobody will ever come in and say, I want to go to an instructor and I want to learn how to shoot a gun if they've never been in a gun shop before. So this is that invitation in, and it's an amazing program.
I am absolutely tickled to hear that. 1,109 people. That's
on Saturday, and then they followed up on Sunday. So yeah.
Well, that's tremendous. I wrote that name down. I apologize. I'm not familiar with Rick Ector, but it sounds like somebody that we'd like to know. So I'd like to hear from. So maybe I can reach out to him and figure out what's going on there. I mentioned earlier regarding Ken Blanchard. It was a really fun conversation to talk with somebody who was considered a pioneer in podcasting and doing some of these things back when, podcasting and blogging were like, oh, those rookie amateurs, that's not real information. I mean, that kind of stuff. So, and he said that he's got 1,000 podcasts under his belt going back that time. So how many, eye on the target, how many of these broadcasts do you have in the bag now?
Let's see. So, I one of the podcast carrier at one of them just kind of collapsed. And so I've lost a lot of the archives from that, but I think I have everything So 2 hours a week, every week since 2018, for sure, is available. And I think I have a lot still in a computer hard drive from 2010. So I don't know. Let's just somewhere between an hour and 2 hours a week since 2010.
Man, so you
15 years of, yeah.
wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's a few. So it's safe to say, 700, maybe 900 recordings. I mean,
Yeah.
that sound right?
Yeah, something. Yeah.
Goodness. Wow. So your voice is known. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I think that people recognize. It's really funny because my brother, he's got this really kind of unique laugh, and so when we started, we were doing it on local radio, and he says one day he was at the grocery store and he laughed with his wife, and somebody came, knocked on his shoulder and said, "Excuse me, are you that Rob Campbell dude on the radio?" And so they just picked him up just based on his laugh, and I thought that was hysterically funny.
Well, it's an interesting thing being recognizable. I mean, I wouldn't know much about it, and I'm glad I'm not. I've got. I think my wife and I joke about it appropriately. One of those faces for radio type of thing. So I'm going to stick with that. What do we need to know about Amanda Suffecool and what you're doing, and where you'd like to see things go before we cap this one off? I'm curious if there are any final thoughts that you'd like to offer us.
Well, if you're of the female persuasion, I'd like to invite you to join Women for Gun Rights, which is a whole nother group and organization that I'm involved with, because it is kind of the political Second Amendment arm where it talks to legislators. We've testified in DC for the House Judiciary, Senate Judiciary, all for a variety of different things, because as you had alluded to earlier, 50-something dude with a plaid shirt and a beard, that's not how gun owners are. They really are. And so we provide testimony and well-spoken, well-educated women who can answer Second Amendment questions. So there you go. There's my face. Second Amendment questions to our legislators. So we are politically active also. And so toward that, I've also gotten involved in politics locally just because of that same thing. But join Women for Gun Rights and get involved. Next year is our 10th year anniversary for Women for Gun Rights. We're going to converge on DC, and there's an opportunity for people to come along so that they can learn how to do it or join us and do it. But last year, we have 50 to 70 women that meet somewhere around, 110, 115 legislators over the course of 2 days. We have a lot of meetings and a lot of communication and a lot of things that says that the Second Amendment, some of those gun owners wear lipstick, and we matter.
We've had Diana Muller on there when IFC's Warrior Wednesday was truly in its infancy. I think maybe I interviewed her because John McLaughlin, our chair, and I do this together. She was a lot of fun, and it was interesting to visit with her because I couldn't find anybody that she didn't know. I'm not kidding you when I say that she knew everybody. I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, she is. And then when you add this group to it, what happens is that if she doesn't know them, whatever state they live in, one of these guys does. Yeah. And when you go and get to hang out with these folks, it's like my superheroes go to summer camp with me. Just the stuff that they do and where they do it and how the battles they fight. You look at it, the first girl there, New Hampshire, Kate, is an Australian who came and became a United States citizen. So the second gal there, Teresa, is an attorney who is licensed to practice at the Supreme Court level. Let's see. Then Nan, I don't know Nan's background. Let's move on to Lauren Hartnett. Lauren Hartnett is a EMT paramedic in New York City, right? I mean, so you start to look at them. Candy, the end, Ohio, she's a mom of 12 and a firearms instructor. I mean, it's
Busy
just
woman.
amazing.
That lady
Amazing.
keeps on the go.
Yeah. So they're just
Very
amazing
good.
women with amazing stories. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned that. All right. So Women for Gun Rights, just for
Mhm.
everybody out there listening, that's womenforgunrights.org. And we encourage you to go take a look at that and join. This doesn't work if you don't join. When you
Mhm.
listen to these podcasts, when you listen to these shows, when you watch these things, we're glad that you're entertained. We're glad that you're informed. But what we're really hoping for is that this manifests itself in some sort of action. And that can be on your terms. We understand that, and
Mhm.
and we want you to do that. But I would also tell you the overwhelming majority of healthy growth in your life is going to come from putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. And so that's, I think, probably one of the most important things about the Second Amendment. You can do that within a framework of safety. And I really, really like that. So I encourage people, yes, we want you to join. We need it. But don't just go and do it on your terms. Be open to experience something new. And I think that you'll be absolutely wowed by the possibilities before you. And oh, by the way, what you can do for somebody else as the beneficiary. And I really like that about the Second Amendment, its movement and its people, Amanda. So thank you, Amanda
I
Suffecool,
appreciate it.
for being part of the conversation today. Would you run down your accolades one more time? I'm not sure I can remember them all.
Oh, well, let's not just blow my own horn, but I am going to be on the ballot for the NRA in 2026. So watch for that, Amanda Suffecool. And other than that, I'm just a problem solver, a Second Amendment person who talks eye on the target radio, talks guns, and gets involved. And so I'm just going to urge each and every one of you to get involved. And as Michael said, here's the thing: join the NRA, join Second Amendment Foundation, right? And then join your state organization, because they are the first line of defense of things that are happening in your state. And think about them, all three of those organizations, as they're the laser pointers and we're the cats. And they're going to direct us to where we ought to be looking, what we ought to be seeing, how we ought to be involved, so that we don't have to read everything and look at everything and get involved in everything and go through all the legislation. They already do that. And they say, hey, look here, or hey, look there. So it's a small price to pay the dues, to get their magazines, to get their newsletters, to hear from them and know that they are the front lines. And that's the best thing that we can do. And then when they call us for a call to action, get up, go do it.
Fantastic. Well said. We'll end on that. Amanda Suffecool, thank you very much for being with us today. Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. Go to iowafc.org. And oh, by the way, if you like this recording, if you like being part of this conversation, do what you're supposed to do. Like and subscribe. And oh, by the way, leave a comment. If you've got a guest that you'd like to see or somebody you want to hear from, let us know. We thank you all. Take care.